Due to LSD, I had the ego death experience, one of the biggest changes of my life. For this weekend video, I want to take you along in what the ego death experience is, according to research, how LSD plays a role, and what my own experience with an ego death experience is like. Ego death is also known by its research term as ego dissolution. This is often linked to experiences with psychedelics like LSD, mushrooms, or for example ketamine, as it hits the same receptors as the first two. The experience is described as a feeling of losing yourself, of letting go of an older part of yourself, of an older version of yourself. It is called like that because it has been reported in studies as a feeling like a form of dying or letting go of their view of their own identity. The ego death has been often described in these studies as eye-opening, relief through the open expression of strong emotions, extremely happy, full of joy, and the opposite side as well, that it can be scary. To really put it in perspective what this all means, it's important to have a sense what the ego is. The ego is your self-identity, of course. It is determined by how you view yourself. More than most probably realize, your ego determines how you perceive the world, of how you go through this world. It determines how you can or how you communicate with others, and has a big influence on how it layers with your self-esteem. Now that we basically laid out the research terminology to best describe the ego death, is the realization that basically everything we deem so important in our life is actually less important than we make it. As I always describe it, your ego is basically the harness around your character, and the ego death means that you basically take the armor off and your character, who you are in your purest form, is left. While it may seem scary to even venture in the world of the ego death, there have been a lot of people over the years to seek out this experience because it can bring great help in trauma, self-development, and understanding yourself. Hey, you, could you help me out and subscribe to the channel to help me out a great deal, and then I can keep continuing making content like this. Thank you. People have been using psychedelics for over 1,000 years already. However, the most famous researcher Albert Hofmann created LSD in 1936. Fun fact, I could still order Hofmann plates from my dealer in Berlin. But after he invented LSD, people started to use the drug for its potential therapeutic effects. Though while the government restricted this and has slowed research down, there was always a medical and scientific interest in LSD. A lot of studies recognize that psychedelics have the potential to benefit for therapeutic use for the average individual. Though in my opinion, if every world leader would take a plate of LSD at least once or twice a year, the world would be a whole different place. It is important to mention though, there is debate about the fact if you need psychedelics to trigger an ego death. There has also been some reporting about great meditation experiences that also allow you to experience the ego death. So at the end of the day, what is the great benefit of ego death? Well, it helps a great deal with making yourself aware that your own life and struggles are less important than it might seem to us. It can disrupt your view on yourself and the world as well. To describe this in the best way, your ego is the I in where you view the world, of course. So with the ego death, people often see that this normal view can be really limited, and it allows you to expand your view on yourself and on the world. Studies have also shown that it improves your mental state and well-being. And this has been shown in factors of depression, anxiety, and especially substance abuse. Yeah, what does all of this basically mean for me? How did I experience it? Because, of course, I have an anxiety disorder and I've also been to therapy. And after I did my therapy, I was still always left with the feeling that I did something wrong, or at least I woke up with a bad feeling. So once I got in touch with LSD, it helped me a great deal to deal with my traumatic experiences that I had in my past life. It allowed me basically, I will give an example of the death of my father. We didn't really have the best relationship, but due to being able to sort of taking my ego down and to see what the relationship was like, I started to feel more comfortable actually with the relationship. I also started to see that I cannot change anything about it anymore. So it helped me a great deal to not have my ego in the way. And that basically my character, where I think at least I am a very loving and open person, to show that, hey, I still have the future. I know that my dad is not here anymore, but at least I can take that experience into the future in where I would act different towards other people and show them my love and my care for them. The whole realization on the world, that also was a big topic for me. Because after my dad passed away, I was sort of, well, I was sad that he was not there anymore, but after him being sick for 3 years, I was sort of okay with it. There was no better solution for it, although yeah, of course, I miss him from time to time. But I see that in a form of love. I loved him and I would be happy if he would still be here, but he was in a shitload of pain, so it was better that it was like that. Also, of course, it was around the same time that I started to read into the Dharma and etc., so that also helped me a great deal. Also realizing that not everything in my life is so important. Yes, at the moment that I'm discussing with someone, being for example in a relationship, that can be really intense, but at the end of the day, does it matter so much? Psychedelics really helped me with that. Even now, sometimes I think about stuff that happened maybe a few years ago and I'm like, Jesus, that was really stupid of you. And instead of walking around with it for days, for example, I now just deal with that in my own head for like 15 minutes. And then I am thinking to myself again, like, hey, I'm here in the now. The only thing that I can do is change this in the future relationships that I have. So all in all, the ego death was really something soothing for me. It really helped me out a great deal to move on further with myself, with my life. And of course, I am not always going for an ego death experience, because it can also definitely, if you do this every weekend, which I would definitely not do, and you shouldn't. With the ego death experience, you basically learn things that you would normally, maybe even, it would take you a few years to learn things. It is a heavily intense experience, so you really need to be careful with LSD for anyways, for example. But to be allowed to experience this and also to have that experience, I'm really thankful for it. I don't only want to give the positive sides, of course, of the ego death, because at the opposite side, in research at least, it has been reported that it can cause nausea, of course. Well, you're on drugs, so that's of course something that can happen. You can get sleep problems, and I can also understand that. Also taken into account that you could view the world in a different way. That definitely happened for me. I became way more of a humanist than I ever thought I was. But if you have a certain view on the world and all of a sudden by the ego death it's shown that the world is actually different than you actually thought it was, yeah, that takes time to sort of get in agreement with yourself that it is like that. Not only that, you could be sweating, you could get a panic attack, you could get some paranoia, and yeah, what I would always say, like, hey, if you're not in a mental state to do drugs, then watch really out with it, because it could also create a psychosis. But that's basically with all the drugs like that, even alcohol. So yeah, a little view on the ego death experience, both from the sides of research, how LSD plays a role in this. If you want to know more about LSD or how to start with psychedelics, then here's a video for that. I hope you liked the video, and then there is nothing else to say than big hug, much love, and then I see you in the next one. Ciao, ciao.